go for video number 2. So in this video, I want to read out to you the Specialist Clinical Assessment Service Cognitive Assessment. This was done in 2018. This isn't a diagnosis report, because I had my diagnosis back in 2008. This was an assessment that I requested because I wanted to know whether or not the assessment I had as a child still reflected the needs I had as an adult. So I asked for this assessment, and it was done on the NHS, and it was a full cognitive assessment. This is the report that the social worker claims he has read. Personally, I don't think he has, or if he has read it, he's not very intelligent and he doesn't understand English, because he was using it to claim that basically I don't need a cleaner. He could, yeah. So I'm going to read this out to you and let me know if there's anything in here that you think says I don't need a cleaner, because seriously, it's absolutely absurd. Anyway, Specialist Clinical Assessment Service Cognitive Assessment. Okay, so this report assessed Anna as a 30-year-old woman. So this was back in 2018. Okay. Whose verbal comprehensive abilities are much better developed than her perceptual reasoning, working memory and processing speed abilities. Anna has a formal diagnosis of autism, which is considered when interpreting the results of her assessment and applying meaning relevant to Anna's everyday experience. So Anna's IQ was assessed when she was aged 11. It was actually assessed when I was 9, but you know, they often get these little things wrong in assessments, doesn't really matter. And the assessment results indicated significant differences between her verbal and non-verbal abilities. This is something Anna has struggled to make sense of in her adult life and in the context of an ASD diagnosis at age 21, and this was her motivation for seeking further clarification through reassessment. As Anna's concerns were around non-verbal and verbal abilities, it was deemed appropriate to reassess using a Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, 4th edition, which assesses verbal comprehension, perceptual reasoning, working memory and processing speed. Okay, I won't read out all of the stuff because it's got a bit about background information which covers the stuff from when I was at school, to do with fine motor skills, difficulties making friends, all those other stuff. That was, yeah. From when I was at school. It says Anna was first referred by a class teacher through the Key Weeks Identification System in 1996 due to reading comprehension observed as below ability for her age and difficulties with spatial awareness. Following this, she was assessed by an occupational therapist who concluded that Anna was experiencing a borderline degree of motor skill impairment. Anna was later assessed using a WISC-3 in 1998. The results of this assessment indicated that she had good verbal and basic reading skills. There was a significant difference between her verbal and non-verbal performance skills. It was recommended that due to severe spatial perception and directionality problems, Anna may require additional levels of support, including with practical aspects of a curriculum, maths, sciences, etc., and organisational support to navigate through the school environment. And the WISC is in the same test family of a race 4, however, the results are not directly comparable. Okay, so I won't read that bit. Moving over, that's just a bit about the test, which isn't really relevant. And then, of course, it shows the results. So the verbal comprehension subtest summary. So basically, let's have a look. So verbal comprehension index is in a very superior range of intellectual functioning. That's 131 to 142. Whereas the perceptual reasoning is in the extremely low average range of intellectual functioning at only 66 to 79. Working memory index is in a borderline range of intellectual functioning, and a processing speed is in the extremely low range of intellectual functioning. So yeah, a massive split, and it's got all of the subtests there, which I won't go into, but as you can see, a massive split, top verbal really high, performance really low, so this massive split there. And then it just says the VCI is designed to measure verbal reasoning, concept formation and knowledge acquired from the individual's environment, and as overall verbal reasoning abilities are in a very superior range of intellectual ability and are above those of 99% of her peers. Maybe the social worker was reading that and doesn't quite understand the difference between verbal and non-verbal IQ. Seriously, if he does though, he's really thick and he needs to go back to social school work or go back to school, but anyway. Verbal comprehension is clearly an area of strength for Anna. It's got nothing to do with cleaning though, has it? She is committed to reading regularly and enjoys public speaking. It should be noted that although Anna performed well in this area and appears to have strong verbal abilities, she may still struggle with the social and emotional context of language. This may mean that Anna will interpret things literally and may struggle to understand social nuances in language, for example sarcasm or humour. As Anna presents herself as verbally strong, these difficulties may be underestimated and cause further problems for Anna when interacting with others. I don't think he read that part clearly, but anyway. Perceptual Reasoning Index. The PRI is a measure of non-verbal reasoning abilities and assesses non-verbal concept formation, visual perception and organisation, visual motor coordination, learning, and ability to separate figure and ground of visual stimuli. Anna's overall non-verbal reasoning abilities are in the extremely low average range of intellectual ability and above those of 2% of her peers. Anna's strongest performance in the perceptual reasoning tasks was in block design, And then it says, the result is likely to mean that Anna finds it difficult to organise visual information so that it is meaningful for her. She may have difficulty with information presented in the form of shapes, colour or patterns, for example complex diagrams. In addition, it may result in difficulty recognising faces, deciphering postural cues and reading facial expressions. And then there's a working memory index. Anna's ability to sustain attention, concentrate and exert mental control is in a borderline range of intellectual ability, and she performed better than approximately 6% of her peers. It says Anna's ability to sustain attention, concentrate, exert mental control is comparable to her non-verbal reasoning abilities, indicating that her perceptual reasoning and working memory abilities similarly organised. And then it talks about my problems with numbers. The two subtasks working memory tasks involve the processing of numbers. I have to remember them in various sequences or to manipulate them in verbal equations. It talks about my problems with numbers. It is likely that this impacted her performance on this subtest. Overall, her scores in this area indicate it's possible the processing of complex information may be more time-consuming and more mentally tiring for Anna compared to her peers. She may also make more frequent errors on a variety of learning or complex tasks and will need more time and repetition. And then it talks about the processing speed index. Anna's ability to process simple or routine visual material without making errors is in the extremely low range of intellectual ability and above that of 2% of her peers. Processing speed is an indication of the rapidity with which Anna can mentally process simple or routine information without making errors. This difficulty may present itself in difficulty prioritising tasks and managing time. Anna may need to read something several times before being able to understand or take meaning from it. She may also need more time to have instructions or new information explained. And then it's got conclusion and recommendations, and it says that Anna's overall cognitive ability cannot easily be summarised because her verbal reasoning abilities are much better developed than her non-verbal reasoning abilities. In addition, her working memory, processing speed and perceptual reasoning abilities are below average. Furthermore, all of the reported results must be interpreted in the context of Anna's autism presentation. And then it provides recommendations about ongoing support needs, about Anna's processing speed below average, is likely to need extra time to make sense of new information. I won't read all of it to you, just the key bits. And it says, in both the context of Anna's ASE presentation and her processing difficulty, she finds it difficult to obtain and make sense of information in a noisy environment. It talks about the need to ask those around me to repeat instructions or information. And difficulties with working memory and processing speed to be optimal for complex tasks, instructions to be broken down, manageable chunks. Anna finds it difficult to prioritise tasks, it says. Experiences of living with challenges brought on by SE and her cognitive challenges being exhausting. She has said she has to carefully think about everything she says and does. Although Anna has well-developed verbal abilities, her difficulties in other areas should not be underestimated, and she should be supported to balance all the challenges presented to her. So there's a few more areas, I won't read it all. But anyway, can any of you, I've read it quite quickly, but can any of you see anything in there that the social worker could use to deny me a cleaner? Because he claims he's read it and that all my needs are in there. Well, he can just bugger off because clearly he hasn't read it. But anyway, thank you for watching.